Evening, everyone. Thought that I would get in at the very beginning of a very important week. And I don't mean another week in Parliament or a week in politics, but the beginning of the week of celebration of volunteers in New Zealand. So this Facebook Live is entirely dedicated to the 1.2 million New Zealanders who volunteer, who give their time, who make New Zealand what it is just through their generosity. I started doing the odd bit of volunteer work when I was quite young, and that was by virtue of growing up in a house and a church that was very focused on service work. And I'm really grateful for that because I learnt from a young age that we all have a role to play in our community, and I saw how rewarding doing that work was. So I feel very lucky to have had that. But now, in this role, I see through the honours process just how many amazing New Zealanders there are out there doing just an enormous amount of work on our behalf every single day. And so I chair what's called the Honours and Appointment Committee. And so twice a year we go through a process where we receive all of the nominations for New Zealanders who deserve to be recognised. And a huge number of those are people who are doing voluntary work, who for 20 or 30 years would have shown up every day at their local society or at their sports club or their community group and just keep doing what they're doing, not for recognition, but just to contribute. And it's an incredibly humbling experience to read these little citations of all of that work and see that there are individuals who don't even know they're being nominated, but who are being quietly recognised. So, oh, I briefly lost you. That shows I have a poor wireless connection here at Premier House. I was just saying that the chairing the honours process and awarding honours at Queen's birthday and New Year's has been one of my favourite parts of this job, one of many favourite parts of this job, because I get to see those stories about the amazing volunteers in New Zealand. So for this National Volunteer Week, and to those of you who are on my feed now telling me about your volunteer work, to the 1.2 million New Zealanders who are our volunteers, my huge thank you. New Zealand would not be the place that it is, the beautiful place that it is, without the work of those for those volunteers. So my big thanks to you. And so for the week ahead, maybe think about doing something to acknowledge volunteers in your community. There might be a general volunteer organisation like there is here in Wellington. There might be a local community group that is full of amazing volunteers. Maybe take them a morning tea. Maybe do something nice for that group of people. Maybe just send someone a little note. And if you yourself are one of those volunteers, you have my thanks and my admiration. And so that was all. That was all I wanted to do. For once, a Facebook Live without political chat and just a Facebook Live with some thanks. One final thing before I go. Some of you may not know that we have set ourselves some priorities as a government, and one of them is that everyone who is able is either earning, learning, caring, or volunteering. Simple idea behind that is simply that for everyone who can, just to be engaged, doing something that feels meaningful to them, whether it's being a carer, may not be paid work, whether it's being a volunteer, whether it's in paid work, or whether it's learning and studying. Those are probably the best indications we have that you have a connection in your community, that you're doing something that feels meaningful, and that you have people around you and you're not isolated. So we'll keep plugging away on our goal of everyone either earning, learning, caring, or volunteering. And in the meantime, a massive thanks again to people like Francis, who is both volunteering and caring. And I include in that, of course, people who are like you, Francis, raising your moko, or people like my mum who are helping me raise mine. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. I'll try and check again later this week, maybe with a bit of politics, because that's what everyone needs on a Sunday night. One final thing, I do want to acknowledge, I'm seeing a few questions being raised on my feed around Oranga Tamariki and some of the stories that have been in the media recently. I've just caught up with a few of our ministers who had a meeting today with some of those who have been seeking answers from Oranga Tamariki over what's been in the media recently. I understand that was a really constructive meeting and that some announcements have been made. I might pop a little more information on this feed here around what came out of that. But Minister Tracy Martin went down to meet with those, particularly iwi leaders who have been raising concerns, and to put a plan in place over what will happen next to meet some of those concerns. And it sounded like it was a really constructive meeting. I've checked in with a few who were there. So for those interested, I'll just pop a bit more information on here. Of course, we take all of these issues incredibly seriously, particularly when they involve children and young people. But for now, thanks again, volunteers, and I'll catch up with everyone later in the week. Have a wonderful Sunday night.